Good morning and welcome to another free webinar hosted by Co-Thrive Community. I'm Kathy Sipple, your host, and with me today, I'm very pleased to have a special guest, author and Co-Thrive Community member, Stephen Dynako. He is author of the recently published Self-Aware Lover, which he did a crowdfunding webinar about not too long ago. Gave authors some interesting ideas how they might fund their project. And today he has come back to show people a little bit about self-publishing. The Self-Aware Lover was the second book he had self-published, and he had done another one as well. So thanks so much again, Stephen, for making time for us.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate the time.
Great, and I want to thank you, our guest, for joining us. We've got people from Northwest Indiana, from Cincinnati. Cynthia, you need to give me a reminder where you're dialing in from. We are happy to have everybody who's here, and those of you who wanted to just get the audio and video and were not able to join live, we're happy that you'll be able to join us even if it's not in real time. So we're kind of doing something a little different here today. I'm the slide girl. I'll be advancing Stephen's slides. So Stephen, if I'm a little behind or something, you just give me a nudge and we will move it forward. Let me just do one quick sound check. Lee, are you hearing us okay? I see your hello. And I'd done some sound checks earlier and didn't get much response. So just want to make sure everybody is hearing us just fine. If you can type that in the chat area and let us know, that's great. Okay, he's saying he sees a slide but no audio. Okay, Joe is hearing us fine. Lee, you might want to try unplugging and replugging in your microphone. It sounds like it might be an equipment end because we are having other people say that they're hearing us. And of course, he wouldn't hear me, I'm realizing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and type him a personal message and we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and go forward, Kathy. So thank you for joining. I appreciate your interest in this topic, and you know, I call today's presentation "Heeding the Call to Publish," because you know it's a call, right? It's you know that we have this idea that we have this story to tell. This what I say in the quote there. I have a book in me that's eager to get out, and you know, it's not something that I think the thing about writing, and especially with the idea of publishing a book, it's unique because it's not something somebody assigns us to do, at least not explicitly. It tends to be something from deep within that we're called to do. I mean, it's very different from writing when we were in school and you're given assignments to write, and they're due on certain days, right? So this is like a call from a higher source or something, your psyche or something deep within you that that really yearns to get a story out. So on this first slide, I'm just going to talk about what we're talking about today. So first of all is you know, the purpose. What's the purpose in writing? And this is really going to be about your story, right? I think all of us are, when we have this this call to publish something, to write something, it's about something about our story. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. And then I'll get into the technical part of this, and I don't want to intimidate anybody by that. And actually, my intention with talking about the technical is to help you feel better about the technical end of this, because actually with the resources that are available in the self-publishing realm today, it is it's pretty easy to do. That's really the good news. And as Kathy said, I did 2 books. One I just released about a couple months ago, and then my first book I did in 2007. And even back in 2007, the process was relatively easy based on the resources that were available, and they've only gotten easier to use in the years since. Then we'll get into the promotional, which is really how do you get your work out there once you've published it. There are several different ways that you can go about doing it. This co-thrive community is one of those, I would say, simply because we're all interested in helping one another. So I say at the very least you have this community, and then beyond that there are other ways, of course, to do that. And then measuring success, and this part is can be very subjective. So it's like, what does success mean to you? And that, I realize, has a very wide spectrum based on what your goals are, what your intentions are, how widely you want to get the work out. So it goes from one end of the spectrum to the other. It's very personal, this idea of success. So I'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. So then we can advance to the next slide. Thanks. So I offer these questions and these comments up for your consideration. What makes a story interesting? I worked in the corporate environment for many years, and probably the most profound training presentation that I attended, or training program that I attended, was held by this guy named Don Jones, and his thing was, to act. It was the theme of his, we simply tell our stories, and I realize I'm format on PowerPoint, so it's kind of ironic, right? But essentially, he was sort of saying that tongue-in-cheek. What he was really getting at was, can we, rather than read our slides to people, and he's talking about this more in a business setting, he was saying, can we tell our story? And using something like PowerPoint as a framework, but not as something that you read verbatim to people. And his point was that if we go into a business setting and simply tell a story, that has a lot more power than simply reading slides to people. And I would say, that's sort of the same idea here with the book. You're telling your story, and that's what really makes it interesting. People are interested in the stories of other people. So one of the things about being in community, and it's no surprise, or it's not ironic that this webinar is being hosted by the Co-Thrive community today, because I very much believe in the power of community and the mutual respect, the mutual support, and the mutual integrity of supporting one another in living our stories, right? So people are interested in the stories of other people, and then people are more likely to retain the point of a lesson when they can relate it to a life experience, whether it's their own experience or someone else's, right? So the idea of putting our story in book format is to teach what we've learned, to relate our own life experience, and that's what's going to resonate. And the reason why I am so focused on this idea of story is because, as we'll learn in a moment, there are a lot of different subjects that you can write books on. We've all read books across different subject areas, and some of those things are more personal and other things are more technical. And I think even the things that are more technical, you can still tell those things in a much more powerful way if you weave it in with a story. So to me, story is very important in helping your writing to be filled with life, quite literally. So then if we move on to the next slide, which is telling your story. So this is about sourcing your material. And I bring up a couple of different options here. I also underscore the word your, right? So sources of your material, and personal journal or diary. A lot of authors derive their material from their own journaling, which it would make sense if you're telling your story. I've done the same. And then we sort of taken the next bullet there is your interpretation of the subject. So my first book was called His Living Teachings Support My Modern Life, and it was really about using gospel teachings in a very practical way. And it wasn't about it was really about how to interpret those teachings for your own benefit. And I think, Kathy, let me know if you're still hearing me, because I don't see the slides.
I am here. Unfortunately, my screen just blanked out, so I'm not sure if we lost internet for a second. If you can keep continuing, I'll get the recording synced back up. But
okay,
we all still do have audio. My apologies.
No worries from my standpoint. I'm looking at my slides on another computer as well, so I'll just continue going with it. So I was talking about interpretation of the subject. So like my first book was about living the gospel teachings in a way that I understood them, and the other point of my book was to help encourage people to interpret those teachings for their own benefit and in alignment with their own values. So, I think it's, regardless of your subject matter, your interpretation, is what makes that material come to life. And by putting yourself in it, people get to know you in a sense, because it's yours. And then the next bullet, which you can't see yet on the screen, but I'll tell you, but it's called dig deep and speak from your heart. Be prepared to be personal. So this was something that was a challenge for me initially, because I grew up being a very guarded person, and a lot of us do. Some of us are, if you look at the introvert-extrovert as a continuum, some of us are more extroverted than introverted, and vice versa, and then we fall on different places on the continuum. So I tended to be more introverted. I also tended to be a lot more guarded. So it was a risk for me to put myself out there, to speak from my heart, to be personal. But I also came to realize that if I'm going to tell my story, I do have to risk being vulnerable and sharing my life's experience, right? So if it's my story, it sort of goes hand in hand with taking that risk. So I would say, and I would suggest that in order to speak from your heart, just be prepared to be personal. And I will also affirm and recognize for you that may not always be the easiest thing or the most comfortable thing to do. I think the payoff in doing it, however, is that you will find your book, your writings to be much more powerful, and other people will too. So that risk does have a reward, for sure. The next item then was aligning your book with your principles, or I could even just say align your book with principle with a capital P. Meaning that if you're writing on regardless of the topic that you're writing on, you align it with your own values, you align it with the principles that you live by, whether they be spiritual, moral, practical, what have you. So aligning your book with principles in a practical manner means that, cite quotations from other works that move you. So in my latest book, I cite a lot of different spiritual sources. So I have some quotes from the Bible, but I also have quotes from Buddhism. I also have quotes from other writers. I actually have even a quote from an article in the American Banker, which is a industry publication that serves the financial industry, because there was a very profound story about people in the banking industry who followed their own call to do much deeper, more life-affirming work. So align your book with principle regardless of where it comes from, if it aligns with what you believe. So citing quotations from spiritual sources, literary sources, other sources, and then you cite other sources to make your content credible as well, right? So you can certainly tell your story without citing anything, and your story in and of itself might be extremely interesting and powerful. So, and if you choose not to cite sources, that's completely okay. If you do cite sources, it does lend additional credibility to what you're writing about. And I would say it really also depends on how technical your content is, right? So if your book is, so let's say on the one end of the spectrum, if you're writing a novel, you know, and it's a story that you're creating, you wouldn't be like footnoting things in the same way that if you were writing something more technical or scientific, where you're going to need more credibility by citing other sources of material that support your work. So it does run along a continuum, but it is also something to keep in mind that citing other sources where appropriate does lend credibility to what you do, to your work. So if we flip then to the next slide, what genre to use. So here I ask the question, you know, are some of your favorite books spiritual, inspirational, or religious, informational, nonfiction, do-it-yourself, or how-to, self-help, or entertainment, escape fiction, right? So, you know, we all, when they're, you know, that cold, rainy day, when we sit down and just read all day, you know, we tend to pick up books in a genre that we really can get lost into, and that could be more than one genre, of course. But what I'm suggesting here is that at the bottom of the slide, you might find it easier to write in the genre that you enjoy reading. So for me, especially within the last several years, I became really drawn to spiritual, inspirational works. So my two books have been in the spiritual, self-help, psychological genre. I would say if I had chosen to write a book, you know, maybe even 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I would have probably done something more in the fiction realm, because that's what I was interested in then. And this is not to say that I wouldn't do that in the future, but I think, you know, in whatever genre that you currently enjoy and that you get into, that's something to consider when you're putting out your own title. So, you know, don't force yourself to write in a genre that really doesn't turn you on, so to speak. You know, I have an interest in scientific work. I've read a lot of, you know, scientific journals and articles and so forth, and you know, I know the process of doing it, and I appreciate it, but I'm not drawn. I'm not called to write like a research paper or a research book right now. So even though I might know how to do it, it's not a genre that works for me right now. Okay, so then moving forward, technical considerations. So I asked the question at the top of the slide, isn't technology supposed to make life easier? Because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes technology can be very frustrating and difficult. So what I'm proposing here is that, you know, because of the technology or in spite of it, you know, keep it simple. So the very first thing to consider, and I think is really important when you're writing, is to digitize your content without concern for formatting. So that simply means just key it into something, right? So, you know, particularly like if you're using your handwritten journals as the source for your material, eventually you need to get it in some sort of digital format, and that's what I mean by digitize it, right? So, you know, you've got to put it in Microsoft Word, or you got to just put it in a plain text document. You know, just get it in there, because that's what you're going to need to do anyway. So I also say here, without concern for formatting. So don't get really caught up when you initially start putting your content into a word processing program or a text editor. Don't really get caught up on the formatting of it so much. The important thing is just to get the content in, because that's the foundation for what you're going to need to build from a technical standpoint. And then, you know, we all have different levels of skill with the computer applications we use. So I will tell you that I came from a graphic design and corporate communications background. So for me, it was not a big leap to go through and format my material, to make it look good, to apply consistent styles to it. However, I also recognize that not everybody comes from that background, nor is comfortable working to make everything look really pretty, and that's fine. So, like my second bullet here is enlist the help of your tech-savvy friends with respect for their time. So there are a lot of people out there, and I've served in this role to my friends who would ask if I could help them like format a page or a document, a presentation, or a website, and I will offer to do that if I have the time to do it, right? So, I say here respect for their time, but there's certainly a lot of people in our circles who are very good at layout, design, formatting, that kind of thing. So, if you can enlist them in a gentle way that doesn't that respects their time, I would say go for it and ask.
Stephen, can I insert a little plug here for CoThrive?
Yeah, please.
I too, back in the late 80s and early 90s, I wouldn't call myself a graphic designer, but I did a lot of text formatting, for corporate communications, pretty big name stuff, Hewlett-Packard, things like that. So I have the ability, I have the background to help people with their formatting, and that's something that I'd very much be willing and happy, frankly, to do for anybody that is a member of the CoThrive community. We currently make time available for 6 hours a week online to deal with just those types of things. What would you ask your tech-savvy friend, but maybe they're not available at the time, or you just have a last-minute 5-minute question, an hour-long question. That's something you can absolutely do. So if you want to check that out, please consider CoThrive membership. If you're not already a member, you can go to cothrive.org to find out how to get signed up. I couldn't let that opportunity go.
No, yeah, and that's perfect. No, I appreciate that, and yeah, and Kathy, Kathy's absolutely right. So, again, it's like it's leveraging the strengths of this community, because I know, and so Kathy, if you don't mind me saying, I think you and I are not the only ones in this community who have these skills.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And that's another cool thing that sometimes happens is that people buddy up and trade time, within the community, and that's something that we're working on getting better and a little bit more formal about. And also the other intention with CoThrive is that to do it so it's not private, and it doesn't have to look like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. It's, yeah, you don't know what you're doing. That's great, and now let's make a video of it so that we can help others. So either, keeping the line open so that others can watch and learn from what you're up to, or just making a video to put away and stow for later. Hopefully we won't have technical difficulties. Again, my apologies that the slides kind of got out of sync, but we're back. So anyway, didn't mean to interrupt there, Stephen, but I just absolutely feel a calling to help people get their message out, and I would hate to see technology be the thing that gets in their way.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and I will talk a little bit more about the collaborative effort as we go through the slides too. So I mean, it's absolutely appropriate.
And I should say too that following the formal presentation, we are going to pop up on screen kind of some of the tools that Stephen used, and he helped me get started. So I can show you the dashboard of my account and just kind of show you what some of the nuts and bolts look like, and we can talk through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Yeah, looking forward to that part for sure. So then the last bullet on this slide, for the core work, the text, I already alluded to this. Use a program that you know well. So that whole idea of getting the text into the computer is important. And I would say don't go out and purchase like a design program, a publication design program like Quark Express or whatever the latest hot program is that's used by all the professionals in the field, particularly if that's not your background. Something like Microsoft Word is good enough just to get the text in. Even a plain text editor is good enough. So don't get caught up on what program to use initially. Just use something that you know you're comfortable with, and that you don't have to fiddle with getting up to speed learning. Something that has a fairly short learning curve, and something that you've probably have been using for years already. So the important thing is just to get the text keyed in. So then we can go to the next slide.
Can I put in my 2 cents here on this one?
Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
But no. I really rely on Google Docs quite a bit, just because I've got Microsoft Office on my laptop, but not the same version on every desktop. So I really love knowing that I can create something on Google Drive in Google Docs, and it looks very much like Microsoft Word. It's not the full capacity Microsoft Word, but the other cool thing is I can get to it from any computer that I happen to be signed on at, and there's a backup in the cloud. So just in case, unfortunately, if it happens time to time, your hard drive goes on the fritz, at least you've got that backup in the cloud. So, even if you don't have Office, you can just use Google Docs for free.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I think that's the difference between when I did my first book and when I did this one is, 7, there really wasn't so much the cloud-based things as available as they are now. I mean, there probably were some, but they were probably highly specialized and very expensive. And now cloud-based solutions are essentially free depending on what you go with, and certainly if you have a Google account, Google Docs is one of those. So this next slide is this is a good segue because it's all about the data. Right, so I basically say the computer is of no consequence unless the only copy of your manuscript is on it. so I can't stress this part enough. If I would say this is one of the key principles of doing this work that you really is important to take away and to be very disciplined with is that Kathy is absolutely right. Doing it in the cloud is great because you're mitigating the risk of your own personal local computer going on the fritz, and you have a copy up there. Now, what I will also say is, now some people who might be more comfortable keeping their information on their personal computer, I think that's absolutely okay. But then the second bullet here is, back up your data on an external device. So this is the way I do it. So I keep everything locally on my computer, and then I make a backup to the cloud. So essentially, what I'm doing is I'm using my Google Drive as a backup form of storage, so that I always do my writing on my own personal computer, and then every time I'm done writing, every session that I finish writing, I back up that document to the cloud. So very important, back up every time you write, because if you say, well, I'm going to back up, I'll just back up once a month. The problem is if your computer went on the fritz halfway through the month, you've lost, potentially X number of days of written work, and that can be very hard to recreate. So I can't stress this enough, is to back up one way or the other, whether you originate in the cloud or you originate on your personal computer, always make some sort of backup. So let me speak to Kathy's suggestion, because I think the cloud, especially Google Docs, is a great way to go. You have to completely put your trust in Google to ensure that they are keeping your data safe. And what I mean by safe is just meaning that it exists. So if I were to use so I'm just going to, Kathy can weigh in on this if you'd like, but if I were using Kathy's approach and using Google Docs, which I think is a great idea, I would still back up that document to my personal computer every time I was done writing, because I always want 2 copies of it, for me personally, because Google will not. So if you read the fine print when you have a Google account, they don't guarantee, like they say, they're pretty much 99.99999% reliable, but they will not guarantee that like if something happens on their end and you lose a document, there's no guarantee you're going to get that back. So
get what you pay for.
Exactly, right? So the risk manager in me says, back up that document too.
Yeah, I will say I do have a backup to my cloud backup as well, and that's with SugarSync. So that's another thing that we actually pay for in my household to back up all of our various computers. You can do them that are not even on the same network or in the same household or anything like that, but you can just have all of your data, not even just Word docs, but any kind of information that you've got stored on your computer, and have that backup. So that's kind of my backup to the backup for the cloud.
Yeah, and I think that that's perfect, right? So even if it's another cloud-based option, it's at least different, right? The whole idea is that your backup is on a different provider or a different media. Yeah.
Right, and not to say that nothing could happen there, but I mean, we do pay, I think, $60 a year or something like that. It's scalable by how much space you need. So, I'm sure there might be some fine print there that I should check out, but yeah, at least it's 2. Or you can use a good old flash drive, but if you keep your flash drive, in your home, and then, God forbid, something happens like your house burns down, your desktop computer and the flash drive could both go. So I think some degree of cloud backup is definitely a good idea, but I appreciate the caveats that Stephen is putting out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really comes down to what you feel is safest for you. Like and I realize like we might be belaboring this point a little bit, but I think it's really important because this is like your life's work when you're writing something, and if you lose it, and I've known this has happened to authors, right? So like I knew somebody who, and this is going back a long time. This is going to date me a bit, but basically back in the floppy drive days, had all of his work on one floppy drive, and then somehow that got damaged, like he spilled coffee on it, or something like that, and then he didn't have any other backup for it. So it's just really important because like everything else can be replicated, right? So you can always buy another computer. You can always reinstall software. Everything else can be duplicated, but the product of your heart and your mind is very hard to duplicate, especially if you've got to reinvent the whole thing. So so what I'm saying here is that your work is so unique that it is worth the effort in making sure that you've got a copy of it somewhere safe, so that if you ever, if your computer ever, spontaneously combusts, you can always get another computer. So the important thing is the data. It's all about the data. That's what you really need to focus on, backing up and preserving and keeping safe.
All right. Hopefully we've scared people just enough, but not too much.
Yeah.
Just be protective. Yeah.
Exactly. It's all about the data. Okay. So editing and design. So questions to ask yourself and to answer honestly, and I underscore honestly here, is like, what's your skill level? And when I talk about editing design, this is about, once you have it written, to go through it and to make sure it's all clean and it makes sense, and it's edited for typos and grammatical errors and so forth. And then design is more like the look and feel, the style, that sort of thing. So what's your skill level? Can you do it yourself? Can you do parts of it yourself? And who do you know who's willing to help, right? So those are the questions. So let's flip to the next slide.
Can I insert one more comment here too?
Yeah, please.
Running the risk of sounding like an infomercial. I mean, where I try to insert the co-thrive solution is, what is your current skill level? Hey, if you're willing to come and learn the skills, I'm willing to teach you. We have other community members that are willing to teach you during the co-thrive Q&A time. So, that is the idea, is to get you to be able to do it yourself. If you're not interested in doing it yourself, then it's not a time where you just come to office hours and sit back and, let somebody else do it. But that's absolutely the idea behind it, is to just close that gap for the skills that you currently have, the skills that you want to have, and just give you that boost. So, if that doesn't work, we might have people in the community that are willing to trade, time for you. But honestly, I do want to really help anybody who's heeding that call to publish overcome that hump, and get started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's why the community's here, and I'm happy to contribute to that too. So so thanks. Yeah, so then we get to self-editing, right? So this is sort of the counterpoint to what Kathy just said, because if you decide to do it yourself, so and these are more caveats, right? You know, if you're confident in your own ability to self-edit, which is a tricky thing, you know, it's basically you got to read and reread your manuscript. Read it out loud, read it word by word, read it upside down. I only, you know, read it upside down is sort of like half joking, but the idea being that the caveat is that a writer, you know, we tend to pass over our own errors over and over again. And, you know, if you self-edit, you've got to really be super careful and you've got to be very deliberate about it. It becomes a bigger challenge the bigger your book is too, right? So if you have something that's very text dense, you can imagine that if you're self-editing and you're going through that book over and over again, that's going to take a really, really long time to do. So, so self-editing, you know, it's something you can do. However, it's best if you are able to bring in somebody else to do that with you or for you, because it is very easy. And I can attest to this for sure. It's very easy to pass over your own errors over and over again. There's just something in the brain that is able to forgive yourself, and it says, "Oh, there's an error there, but I know it's there, so I'm just going to ignore it, and I'll keep reading." So it's not to say that you won't catch your own errors eventually, but you don't want to catch them after your book's published, if at all possible. So, so if we flip to the next slide. Kathy had mentioned Co-Thrive Community as a collaborative place where you can do that, which I absolutely endorse and am happy to participate in. There's this other outfit called Mission Marketing Mentors, which I'm not directly endorsing, but there is a friend of mine who is using this service right now to do editing of her own book, and she has been very satisfied with it. So I kind of bring it up because it's a friend, it's basically somebody I know who's using this. You know, I'm not making any guarantees that they're going to do the best job, and there are a lot of other places, but she basically, my friend who's using this has been satisfied with it because it's helped her with the editing portion of her book. There's a lot of services this outfit does, but I'm just talking about it in the context of editing. So, you know, you can see by the screenshot there on the slide, you know, the headline is how to create a book that attracts new clients and generates multiple income streams, which is great. So, I mean, they can help you with other things, but in terms of just editing them itself, I know that this outfit can help you edit your book.
Which can be quite expensive, I have to say.
It can be. Yep.
Yeah. I have so far only co-authored 2 books. I'll be doing a 3rd one here very shortly. But I enjoy having a professional editor help us with that process, and it's, you know, a pretty small amount of text. So I had approached the author that I really enjoyed working with and thought, oh, let me just make the leap to publishing my own book and hiring an editor. And I have to say I was kind of floored.
Yeah.
You know, so it can, if you don't look for ways to bootstrap it, you know, and I'm not saying that this person wasn't worth it either. She very likely is worth every penny, and I think she's probably, if anything, underpricing herself. But, you know, when you look at having to print things up front, or even if you don't, even if you do the self-publishing but just pay for the editing, you know, I can't remember precisely, but I think we were talking 250-page book, and, you know, it was, I want to say, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but it was definitely thousands of dollars. I want to say closer to $4,000, something like that. I'm sure, you know, there are tons of people out there. Again, you're going to get what you pay for, though. You are asking for a lot of somebody's very undivided time who has this particular expertise. So anyway, good resource to at least check out. And you're right. It is an expertise, and that's why it you know, it has a price to it. So so yeah, I mean, and it's something to really just think about, you know. I do want to say too, because you've got multiple streams of income. We did a webinar a couple months ago on writing, and we had Lisa Harris who talked about, you know, writing articles and e-newsletters. We had Sue Erda from Powerful You Publishing, who was talking about the co-authoring model. And Sue pointed out another resource that was out there about, how do authors actually make money? Most times it isn't necessarily all from the book sale. So that is kind of an important concept that, there are some other ways to do it. And we can either talk about that in the Q&A if this isn't the appropriate time, Stephen, but you were talking about maybe bundling your books with speaking engagements or book signings or things like that.
Right.
If you're just trying to kind of sell them one at a time online and see what happens, certainly you can do that, but it can be slow going. So things that help you get a big jump start. We also did a webinar several months ago on crowdfunding. So PubSlush was one crowdsourcing website that we looked at that's for authors only. So a lot of different ideas that we've already covered, and I can kind of type up some notes and put those other resources together with this.
Yeah, no, I think that's important, right? I think those are all very useful things to be aware of and to know and to consider. Yeah, so thanks. I mean, absolutely worth exploring. So next slide here is design. So a book is first judged by its cover. So not as a book only judged by its cover, but it's at least first judged by its cover because it's the thing that people see when they first pick it up. So here a clean and well executed design is critical to the perception of your title as professional work. I mean, it's funny because I kind of grew up professionally during the time that desktop publishing was in its infancy, and all of a sudden you had these publishing tools that were available to the masses for a relatively small investment. And you could definitely tell the difference between something that was designed by somebody who was trained to design and somebody who wasn't. So just because you have a hammer, it doesn't mean you can drive a nail successfully unless you're taught how to do it. And you certainly can use that hammer, but you might do more damage than good with it. So I believe in the efficacy and the virtue of having it professionally done. You were going to say something, Kathy?
Oh, I think we're about even in years of age. I was around during that time too, the desktop publishing. There were a lot of ransom note looking documents coming out.
Yeah, that's what we call them, right? The ransom notes, yeah.
Yeah, just because you've got 500 fonts to choose from doesn't mean you should necessarily use them, So
exactly.
I just want to plug into my very first job out of college was a company called Promotional Perspectives, and we actually went around the country and did workshops on how to use restraint, how to use desktop design for people that aren't designers. And so there are some good books out there. One of the gentlemen I had the privilege of traveling with was Roger Parker, and he wrote the book Looking Good in Print.
Oh yeah.
So that
I remember that.
Yeah, I got to travel with him and kind of learn from him. And he almost compared it to like selecting a wine. He would talk about a serif font and what that conveyed, and all different kinds of things. So there are a lot of good tools out there. Or again, I've kind of got all of those lessons in my head. I'm not necessarily a designer, but I do know kind of how to bring it back from the edge if something's gone too far. Another tool we've talked about in previous webinars is Canva. That's canva.com, and that's a really great design tool, free in the cloud, that helps even non-designers put together elements that looks pretty darn nice. They've got a lot of different free images you can use. You do want to read the legal and make sure it's okay to use for a book cover, for instance. But they've even got some text that's put together in some very interesting ways where you can change the color, the size, or all different things. But at least that gets you part of the way there. If you start with a template that looks pretty good, then there's a little less danger than just creating from scratch and doing that ransom note. So anyway, that's my little sidebar on that.
Yeah, and I think I think you make a really good point that like a lot of the tools that are available, particularly on the cloud, that kind of they're like a design assistants, because they provide templates and you can make something look really pretty good without actually being a designer yourself. And those things have come a long way from the ransom note days. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot out there for sure. So you can leverage those things for certain. particularly if you're doing this work more on a budget where you may not be able to afford to bring in a designer for however much it might cost you. So yeah, I think it's important to be aware of those tools. So it's sort of it makes like going forward, like, so now you see that this is somebody that I definitely can promote and recommend, because Kathleen Brigidina Hare did the cover image for my book, The Self-Aware Lover. So, and is she a member of Code Thrive Community?
She is
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes,
So this is somebody that we absolutely, I think both Kathy and I would recommend that you can reach out to, and who would be very happy to work with you. She's got a huge catalog of images she's already done, and that's how I chose mine from her existing portfolio. And you could see also the other thing I like about her, this is the screenshot of her homepage, conscious business design. So just, her values match mine with regard to the belief in doing business in a conscious way. But you can see there she has logos, websites, murals, walls, wall mandalas. So so I highly recommend her website addresses there below, brigidina.com. She's part of the community, so I don't.
She's a very nice person also.
Yeah, so I don't hesitate to support her and recommend her at all.
Very, very intuitive. So if you happen to be, in those genres, anywhere in, self-help, spirituality, she's very interested in environment, any of those, I think you'd particularly resonate with the images. If it's something, fiction or historical, it might not be the best match. So obviously, check it out and, do your own research. But yeah, she really is great, and I think would get your message if you happen to fall into any of those areas that we were just talking about.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so just real quick on the legal. You can register your copyright for your book at copyright.gov. Now, just the sub-bullet's important here. In general, registration is voluntary. Copyright protection exists from the moment the work is created, meaning that it's fixed in a tangible medium. However, registration does have benefits such as proof of ownership. And really, I would only recommend this if you feel that you're going to be, well, I'll use myself as an example, right? So my book's called The Self-Aware Lover. I'm looking at developing other products that derive from the book. So for me, it was important to register the book as to register the copyright for my book, because I'll have other derivative works. And if somebody else sort of picks up the title Self-Aware Lover and wants to use it to promote something, I've got first dibs on it and I can prove it. So even though the copyright protection exists without registration, if you're going to be doing something more ambitious with your work in terms of putting it out there or deriving other things from it, it probably is worth, it's like $55 to copyright it, to register the copyright. And then a couple of,
yeah.
No, go ahead.
Very well worth it. I didn't know it was so inexpensive.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a really cheap expense for sure. So if you have any doubts about whether you should do it and you're thinking, man, maybe it's worth it, yeah, I would recommend it. And then other things, see whether express permission is required for citing other sources. My first book had a lot of Bible quotes in it because it was about the Gospels. So and you just want to make sure that, like, if you're quoting things from another source, that you can use it, as long as you're citing the work properly. And then pay attention to terms and conditions of your publishing contract for fees and commitments, which basically, if you're working with another publisher, you just want to be aware of the legal agreement ramifications.
And so for self-publishing, that really wouldn't apply to too many people for this topic, is that correct?
No, not really. I mean, you're going to have an agreement with whatever provider you use, but those are pretty standard, like user agreements.
Okay.
So,
when you say provider, yeah. Are we talking about create space, like on Amazon? Is that considered?
Right, exactly, like your self-publishing outfit.
Okay.
Yeah.
There would still be terms and conditions even for that.
Yeah, it's like using software, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, cool. Well, we'll get into that more in the Q&A, I'm sure. But
yeah.
good stuff. I'm learning. You're teaching me.
Good.
Hmm.
So who do you use, right? So which self-publisher? There are a lot of options. CreateSpace is the one that I've used for both my books. CreateSpace used to be called BookSurge. So when I did my first book in '07, it was BookSurge, and they changed their name to CreateSpace. So it's simply createspace.com, and I think we're going to look at that a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll go to a screenshot.
Yeah, so that's an Amazon company. So it's an Amazon platform. And because of that, it's very tightly integrated to Amazon's distribution network through the Amazon website and so forth. And then there are a couple of other outfits that I've put here, but there are many, many more than this. So especially if you want to go with more like an indie publishing model, that's not a big corporation, because CreateSpace is certainly part of a big corporation. There are indie publishers that you can use for self-publishing. So there's different flavors of them, and we don't really have time to go into them all. And honestly, my experience is really only with CreateSpace. So I can't speak to the ease of use for any of the other ones, although I suspect they're probably all comparable. So,
Stephen, I understand that you can't speak to the ease of use, but could you speak to how you came to choose the Amazon model versus maybe an indie model? What were some of the pluses or minuses of each way, at least for your own particular situation?
Yeah, sure. So back in '07 when I did mine, CreateSpace, which like I said back then was BookSurge, really was one of the kind of the only games in town. Well, I shouldn't say it wasn't the only game in town, but it was probably the easiest to use. So my decision at that point was really dictated by, I just wanted like a turnkey solution. I was able to provide all of the files, the internal book itself and the cover digitally, and I just needed somebody to actually print them for me. So at that time, BookSurge was very simple. It suited my needs. I didn't need to purchase any of their ancillary services for either design, editing, or technical setup, because I was able to do that all myself. However, they did offer those things. So previous to that, like I had published a book on design, marketing and business design, but I kind of did that. That was essentially all homegrown. I had created a document, and I simply went to what was then Kinko's and made copies of it. That was a very, very bootstrap type of model.
Right,
right. But yeah.
Yeah.
That was my rationale.
Okay, cool. And I'm sure we'll again have more time to get into this in the Q&A session if we're not going into more detail now. But yeah, I mean, I was really interested to learn from you. What is the process? What is the incremental cost? And I didn't realize quite that you could just do it on demand, that you didn't have to have a downstroke really of too much, if anything.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, we'll go and get through that when we come back to Q&A. So we're going to talk about promotion?
Yeah, and let me just say real quick, just the only thing I'll say about CreateSpace, which I'm sure is true with the other publishers, is that you can buy editing services from them, right? So we were talking about editing. If that's something that's like the $4,000 number that Kathy provided was what scared you, CreateSpace actually does provide editing services that are much more reasonable, and they do have a very thorough process for going about it. So you can actually purchase that from them. They're equipped to handle it. So I just want to put that out there. So these self-publishing outfits are definitely designed to be one-stop type of operations.
But kind of a la carte. So it's not that you're forced to take all of it, but if you find that you can maybe easily do the layout, but the editing is troublesome, maybe you just want to choose to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Good.
So promotion. So there's a lot of channels out there. Your community. So obviously, I'm kind of promoting my book through the Co-Thrive community by having this webinar, for instance. Friends and family, particularly the ones you get along with. Advertising, traditional advertising, having a dedicated website or blog to support your book. Amazon reviews. I remember with my first one, I had asked some folks who liked my book if they would write reviews on Amazon, and that's how I got some reviews for it. And then Kathy was kind enough to do one for my current book, which I appreciate.
And you didn't even ask. I just wanted to.
Yeah, which is great. So
I really liked the book. It was a great book. Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that. So yeah, you can always ask people to do reviews if especially if they've been moved by your content. And then your publisher's resources, which I've already talked about, right? So your CreateSpace does provide essentially you're automatically enrolled in Amazon distribution, right? So once you do your book through CreateSpace, it's automatically available on Amazon. So and there's no cost to that. It just is. So it's great. But they offer other ways to promote as well, which you can purchase. And of course, there's you could do a Facebook page for your book. So Facebook actually has a page type called book. There's different Facebook page types. There's ones for businesses. There's ones for religious institutions. There's ones for retail stores. There's also a category for books. So you can create a Facebook page for your book specifically. Anything else that you would think of, Kathy, in terms of the social media aspect?
Yeah, and even the crowdfunding too. I think just considering your audience, who do you think is really going to resonate with your topic? If you think that it is kind of a niche topic, or you've got maybe a list of people that you think are going to be excited about it, maybe that would tend to work a little bit better for crowdfunding. Can't say I've got extensive experience with this, but a few years ago I had a client who came to me and he wanted me to develop a website for him, but when I learned what he wanted to do, it was basically developing a website for his book. That can be kind of an expensive proposition if you don't already know how to build a website or a blog to pay somebody to do it. Now you've got to sell that many books just to pay for the website. So what I proposed to him instead is that we do a crowdfunding campaign. His book was, his name was Randall Jamrock. He's from Highland, Indiana, and he wrote a book called Permaculture Solutions to Climate Change. And so I kind of managed to get him some podcast and radio interviews. We did an email blast to a related organization that had about, maybe 1,000 people on their email list, people that we thought would be very interested about the topic permaculture. And then we chose a crowdfunding platform that wasn't just Kickstarter or Indiegogo. It was actually We the Trees, which funded permaculture projects. Anyway, he funded the printing of his books in just about 3 weeks. So at that point, he knew that he had enough sales where he was doing a different kind of self-publishing. It wasn't an on-demand. He actually wanted to get them printed out and get them distributed, start doing talks and that kind of thing. So it really does depend on, what your end objective is. And even though with the on-demand printing, it doesn't require you as an author to come up with a large amount of money down in order to get them printed, I think there is still some value to kind of building up demand so that when you launch, you've got people that are already, really excited and are ready to purchase on, day one or the week one or what have you. So yeah, I do have some ideas around that, and I think that Powerful You Publishing, Sue Urda, who was a previous guest, she offers a lot of really, really nice webinars around this topic as well. So yeah, this is probably where I have the most background is the promotion, not so much with the writing it and self-publishing. So I hope I didn't overstep my mark here, Stephen.
No, I think it's all helpful, so thanks for sharing that. Definitely we've got different experiences in this realm, so I think it's all useful. So let's go forward.
Just one more that I thought of is even if you don't have your website up, just having like a landing page that says, coming soon, here's what I'm doing, giving people a way to opt in, that, hey, send me your first chapter when it's available. You can set up something for free on MailChimp.com. That's a free email hosting account that you can do, where you don't need to go through your personal Gmail or what have you to email people back and forth, but you can set up something called an autoresponder. So you can say, when somebody, opts into your list, you can have them automatically be sent, let's say, the first chapter or something from you that just lets you know that they're out there and they're excited. And then when you do launch, of course, it's not a promise to purchase the book, but at least if they've read the first chapter, they've gotten kind of into, what you're about, that gives you the opportunity to kind of remarket to them once the book is available. So that's just another little aspect of promotion. Start collecting the list before you need the list.
Yeah, great. I think it's all great stuff and very important. So thanks. Keeping up the momentum. Just read your book, remain familiar with what you wrote. It may sound intuitive and like easy, but actually, it's something I believe strongly that we just need to keep refreshing our own our minds with our story. It's funny. I go back and read the book I wrote back in '07, and I kind of get new insights from the material and different things to think about. And I think it actually helps. It helps me speak about it more strongly because my own thinking has evolved, since then. Teach from your book, particularly, if you are doing speaking engagements to support your book, which I did extensively with my first one, and I'm doing it with this one. Your stories demonstrate how and what you've learned and what you can teach to others. So for me, I'm just speaking from my experience. It's not enough just to have the book out there. For me, it continues to live by my talking about it and by my sharing the stories verbally with people. So that's how I keep up the momentum of the book.
Do you mind if I put in 2 cents on this one too?
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned pick a genre that really resonates with you, tell your story. You might also really think about, why are you heeding the call to publish? If you really feel that you want to leave a legacy and it's simply, the thing that you think is really important to put out there in the world, then hey, go for it. I had the opportunity to kind of be part of these co-authored books where they already had a theme, and I liked the theme, so I just jumped in with whatever topic seemed to kind of make sense, what resonated with me. It wasn't something that really I was able to dovetail all that easily with my business, so I kind of had to create different opportunities for myself to do speaking engagements and that kind of thing. So, I guess just that Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, begin with the end in mind. What's success look like for you? If you want to teach, what kind of audiences are those? So it's not just enough to know what the genre looks like, but, really getting in touch with who is that end audience, who are you trying to help, I think can help you unpack what keeping up the momentum is going to look like for you and whether you're still going to be excited about it. As much as I love the last topic I wrote about, which is composting food waste with worms, I have, I think, only ever made a very, very tiny honorarium on being a speaker, for that. It's just something I'm passionate about. And I'm not sad that I wrote a chapter about that topic, but it's just not something that I'm going to commit a lot of time on the speaking circuit to. So, I just think it might be kind of basic, but if you want to do the speaking, you really have to kind of pre-think this aspect pretty hard, what a speaking engagement looks like. Where are those people? What would you say? Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely right, because I mean, especially like for me, my book is about living what I feel is my life's purpose. So at this point in my life, and so I want those things that I do to that I'm presenting out in the community to be very meaningful and very impactful, and to be definitely targeted towards people and groups that are ready to receive the message that I have to offer. So I think, everything you said is exactly right on.
Yeah, so the next thing I'm working on is a longer book that will be, I think, self-published, and it combines what I do with social media marketing and my environmental interests. So I think that is going to have legs. That's also the TED Talk that I'm working on right now. I have an interview for that next Saturday, and that'll also be the topic of the next chapter that I'm, for the book I'm co-authoring. So I think I had to almost put my big toe in, see what the experience was like to understand what was going to come after that. And while it was thrilling to have that book, when I would go and talk about environment, or I'd go and talk about social media, ironically, my first chapter in the book, Stephen, was about picking your life's purpose, and that wasn't the thing I was out there speaking about. So, again, it's not that I'm sorry I wrote it. It was a story I wanted to tell. But if you're going to write an entire book, not just a chapter, that becomes, something you really want to be pretty in love with.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
See yourself getting excited in front of crowds to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually is a nice segue into this last slide, which is about measuring success. So what constitutes success, really? Is it selling 1 million copies? Is it affecting one person's life in a real and positive way? Is it sort of somewhere in the middle of that spectrum, right? So expectations of success may align with your higher purpose, and that will be different for all of us. So with my first book, it was fairly, so I come from a unity background in terms of my own faith tradition, and that book got a lot of mileage in the unity community. I spoke a lot at a lot of unity churches. That's where it felt right to talk about it and to promote it, and I did that, fairly successfully. I didn't sell 1 million copies of it, but that was okay. And it's not to say that I wouldn't be open to that, and perhaps that will happen someday. But I also, you have kind of an initial idea of, okay, what does success mean for this title? Success is going to mean something different to each of us, and that's okay, right? So if we go with the popular notion of success, it's all about selling 1 million copies, because I just think in our culture we're very materialistically oriented in general. But think beyond that, right? So and that's a worthy goal if that's your goal, but don't discount the other markers of success. Right? So if you move somebody in a very profound way, and they tell you that, and they say, your book saved my life, which could happen, that's success, at least to me. So just be aware of that and be open to what success means in a more universal way. So then really the next slide is just showing you my book, The Self-Aware Lover, also showing you Kathleen's great work. So she did the cover image for that. So that heart image is called Resonance. That's her title for it. And then I came to an agreement with her to use it for my book cover. So that's the book. And then the last slide is just if you want to contact me, feel free. There's my email, web, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn information. So with that, I think we open it up for Q&A, unless you have anything else, Kathy, that you want to say.
I think our audience has been really patient, and I bet they are going to have some questions. So let me get back to our toolbar and see what people have been thinking about. If you do have questions, just let me know, and I'll be happy to put you on the mic if you would like to. I had my own Amazon account up, and I was going to show that. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm going to just have to get back in. Lisa asked podcast interviews, and I'm not sure what that was regarding, Lisa. Was that with the promotion? If that was the promotional aspect, please tell me, if you can, what you meant about that. And then Lisa also said, great info. Apple has an iBook author out to self-publish ebooks. So, yeah, I don't know about that, so I'm going to have to double check on that one. And she did verify that promotion opportunities was what she was talking about for the podcast. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and just show you what my behind the scenes here looks like. This is the account that I created on CreateSpace, and I had signed in already, but somehow I think we just lost an internet connection. So I haven't done an awful lot just yet. It kind of walks you through step by step by step. I have paid nothing thus far with what I've done here. Basically, you get assigned an ISBN number. And Stephen, can you remind me what that is?
Yeah. So basically, if you're gonna sell a book through any kind of typical traditional channels, the ISBN number is essentially required. If you do your book through CreateSpace, they assign the ISBN number. You don't actually have to worry about it. Back when I did this in 07, I actually had to apply for an ISBN number separately and then provide that when I went through the self-publishing process. But now they've improved it. So if you're solely so here's the rub though, right? If you want CreateSpace to be your main publisher, as it were, or your main outlet, you can get the ISBN number through them, but then you are restricted on. There's a restriction that you cannot publish an alternative version of your book with any other publishing outfit, right? So CreateSpace really pretty much is your hub. If you obtain the ISBN number separately, which you can do, there are websites to do that. You can provide it to CreateSpace, but that also gives you the freedom then to go to like Author House and say, I want to provide my book in a self-publishing format through another outfit. You've got the freedom to actually kind of pepper it out there. I don't think there's really any advantage one way or the other. I was interested in turnkey, so I just went with CreateSpace for the ISBN number. It doesn't cost anything, so that you can see on this screen there are the prices. If you do it with CreateSpace and they get it for you, it's free. If you get it through another channel, there's various costs involved there.
Almost like buying a domain name.
And a little bit more hassle too. So you got to think about that.
Okay.
Right? I think it's perfectly okay to just go with CreateSpace, and you're sort of under the Amazon umbrella with everything, but
if you're okay with that.
If you're okay with that, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a place for your title, of course, primary author. This is really, okay, this is kind of aspirational at this point. I don't have a foreword and a preface by any of these people, but it really makes you think about who would I want? Who do I really respect? Who could, add something that I think would be great? And so I just picked two people that are in my network who have written books that I really love. And, I have no idea if they're actually going to do it, but it just gives you a placeholder to record this information. And I think that it really gets your mind going. There's a spot for interior. There's a spot for cover. You can choose a trim size. I haven't researched this a whole lot just yet, but it looks like they do recommend 6x9. And I think I did see, Stephen, that you went with a slightly different size.
Yeah, mine is
a little smaller.
I think mine is 6x8, I think.
Yeah, or it even seemed like it was 4 point something by 8. And I was just curious if you chose that for any particular reason or how you came up with that.
Yeah, it's more personal preference than anything. Like, I wanted a book that essentially you could, it's easy to hold. It fits in your hand really nice. It's portable, meaning like the printed copy of it you can kind of easily take in your bag. So that's sort of, that sort of dictated, so it's that. It was my personal preference. I didn't want anything that was like a coffee table size, and the content wasn't appropriate to that anyway.
So yeah, I guess look at
you see these. Yeah, you see these. Yeah.
Look at your own bookshelf and kind of think, what do I want my book to feel like? What is it going to look like? And maybe that will help guide you.
Yeah, I think mine's 5x8 actually.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can, and basically, so let me go back real quick and talk about like we were talking about, like getting your content in a program. What's nice about these templates or these trim sizes is that you can, through CreateSpace, then download a template. So for that size, right? So if Kathy's going to go with 6x9, you can download a template in Microsoft Word that basically gives you all the like the nice layout for everything to fit within those dimensions.
Right.
So
So I'm just doing that right now. So I just right-clicked on Formatted Template,
yeah.
and it's downloading right here to my hard drive. I could then go over to Google Drive and just simply do New, File Upload, and choose that download. Here we're probably going to see all kinds of things I need to clean up. Create space. Yeah, create. Okay. Hopefully I'm not dragging you guys through too much of the detail. But, if this is the thing that's going to launch you and let you go into it, then that's great. I know some people cannot stay for the entire thing, but I do want to encourage anybody who's remaining to let us know what stage of the game are you in? What do you need help with for your own book project? Some of you I know a little better than others, and I could probably posit a guess as to what you need. But this time is for you. We absolutely want to move you forward with whatever questions are on your mind, whether it's technicality or going back over any of the slide information. Anything at all is fair game. Lisa pointed out that she believed a different ISBN number is needed for each type of publication, whether it's a hardcover, an ebook, or what have you. And that sounds kind of familiar to me, but I don't recall. Do you happen to know, Stephen?
You know what? I have to research that myself because
Okay.
that might be true, but I can't say with certainty.
Okay.
So that would have to be like a parking lot question.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that it's easily researched and it's probably somewhere on the Create space. But this right here, what I'm showing you, is actually just the template after it's been uploaded to Google Drive. And again, we're not necessarily saying put all of your eggs in one basket here with Google Drive, but you can certainly create it here. The advantage is it does create a cloud backup, and you can just simply type over, these text blocks. You do have to actually open it in Google Docs to get to the ability to edit. But I did start it, and it was pretty darn easy to do. You can see that this is coming in as a 6x9 because that's the template that I chose. I'm assuming that if I would have chosen a different size, we would have gotten a different size.
Yep.
So it comes in, with kind of all the copyright information right where it should be, space for your ISBN number right there, dedication, just seeing all the various parts of a book that I think we all know hypothetically exist, but with our own book, maybe you haven't thought about a dedication. Maybe you haven't thought about, the preface, or what is the, first chapter going to look like? Where are the chapter breakouts? And it just makes it a whole lot more real, I think. Joe, do you want to say anything? Do we still have Joe on the call? I actually did help Joe get started with his own Create Space account, and he's been working on a book kind of okay, great. He says yes. I had a feeling he would. He's not shy. In the interest of full disclosure, Joe is my dad, my dear dad. So let me let him. Hey, Joe, you got the mic. You want to try talking? Do you have your mic set up? If not, you may need to dial in with the phone. I'm not hearing you right this second. I think we've gotten the mic to work for him on previous calls. So, Dad, you can decide whether you want to call in or if you can reconfigure your mic. Sometimes just unplugging and replugging back in can do the trick. But he's been working on historical memoirs about a relative. I believe it's his, I want to say, great-grandfather. Now I'm going to probably get it wrong, or it might just be grandfather. Maybe it's my great-grandfather, who was in the Civil War. And so it's mostly historical. I'd really rather let him tell this. But he decided that his success level would look like him raising enough money from the sales of the book to actually replace the headstone for this gentleman, because back in that day they didn't really have, they were making a lot of the headstones out of limestone, and they just get very eroded over time, and it just doesn't, you can't really read his name or anything. So I thought that was a very cool idea, and seeing where he wanted the success to go, what that would look like, I think is kind of now driving him to take it over the finish line, to get it done, and to kind of maybe even look at crowdfunding, which he wouldn't have thought of probably if it was just to sell books for himself. So Joe, I still don't have audio for you. Please let me know or just, call in if you'd like. Cynthia, I see that you're indicating hello and you've raised your hand, so I'm going to see if you would like to speak. I unmuted you, Cynthia. If you have any questions. Hi there, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Stephen.
Hey, Cynthia, how are you?
Hi, wonderful. It's so nice to hear you and connect with you again.
Yeah, likewise.
Congratulations on your book. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Kathy, you and I have never talked, but we do chat on Facebook on occasion.
Yeah, I definitely knew your name, but I was trying to recall. I couldn't place where, so that makes me feel better that it wasn't an oversight.
I'm the one who asked you about offering classes for foraging.
Oh, right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
See, that might be a book. That might be a book one of these days.
I think it should be, because the one I have, someone gave me a book on wild edibles, and it's not a very good book.
Okay.
I think you could do much better in our area. I'm in the Ogden Dunes area.
Okay.
And I am interesting. There's a lot of synchronicity here. I was at a storyteller's workshop all day Sunday in Three Oaks, Michigan. So it's a very, very powerful, and it's a very thing it's very dear to my heart. So between storytelling, poetry, and writing, I have a host of things that I'm wanting to tie in. But before I go too far, I wanted to say congrats and best wishes to you on your TED Talk. I think you're going to do a phenomenal job. You're just an amazing inspiration in this community. You're just an amazing inspiration to this community. And I will be signing up for the Coast Guard community membership soon, so I do want to be a participant of that.
Well, great. I'd love to get the opportunity to connect, over the long term. That would certainly be lovely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this last hour with you and Stephen, it was just wonderful. It was you both did an amazing job in pulling this all together and tying it together. So thank you. And I also wanted to speak real quickly, because you mentioned your dad, the veteran story. What's also synchronistic is that the founder of the Indigenous Storytellers in Three Oaks, Michigan, he is actually they're putting together veteran stories, and he's getting ready to put his story into the Library of Congress.
Oh, wow.
And they're working with the studio, the Art and Education Studio in Three Oaks, Michigan. So I think your dad would do, I think there's a tie-in for him to get connected to this person. So I'll give you that information.
Very cool. Well, I would appreciate that, and I'm sure he would as well. He's definitely been writing his little heart out for years now.
I love synchronicity, and I love tying these things together and bringing bringing these hubs together. I also want to tell you that I am equally excited with you when it comes to vermiculture.
Oh, cool.
It is it is liquid. It is liquid gold.
It is. It really is. And I will say, Kathy Harrer, the same artist who did Stephen's book cover, she actually was kind enough to develop an ebook cover for me that has a little worm on it. I don't have the picture handy, but it was a beautiful thing, and she really got that. So very cool.
So that's exciting too, to know that there's a a vermiculture community that is going to be thriving in Northwest Indiana. So I wrote a children's book a few years back. I was working with the local parks departments and whatever, and I used to be a pretty hardcore environmentalist, tree hugger. I'm still a tree hugger. So I've got two books. Actually, the one book, I already I didn't self-publish it, but I self-created it. And it was for a project with the watershed community. And it's a story on, it's a children's book on the journey of a drop of water. So what I did was I did a PowerPoint presentation with it, and I presented it downstate, and it was really well received. The environmental item, Indiana Department of Environmental Management, wanted it, but they wanted to take it and publish it, but they didn't want to all they wanted to do is give me credit for it. And then, so there was no other opportunity to I don't know, it just didn't feel right to give my book to the government. And and then the Department of Agriculture wanted it too, and then I kind of stepped away from that. Anyway, to shorten it up, now many years later, I'm sitting here, and how I have copyrighted my book, and I learned this many, many years ago, is I actually put the book in a big envelope, and I mailed it to myself so that it is sealed by the U.S. Postal Service, and I put tape around the seal so it has not been broken, so that the timing of it shows that I am the author of this book. In case IDEM and the Department of Agriculture decided to take the copies that I gave them and use it for their own personal uses.
Yeah, it's a great idea. That's perfect.
Okay, so here's the problem. I had this on a drive. I had this on a little portable drive, and it's gone. I have no power. I did my own photography. I did the writing. I did everything. And I put it on a little drive thing, and I took it to the library and used that drive, and in the and I don't know what happened, but I still have it. And I tried to take it to a technical place to see if they could retrieve the information, but they couldn't. So I have 2 hard copies of my book.
Okay.
So you need to redigitize.
I don't even have the photographs. I have not. All I have is the actual hard copies of the book.
Yeah.
This is a little outside of my piece, but I just am doing a quick, Google search on hard copy to soft copy scanning.
Okay.
I'm thinking, again, I kind of tend to get into things that aren't necessarily my expertise, but, I hear ideas or I hear things that happen, and so often.
Well, and I don't expect to get all the answers. I guess what maybe would be helpful is, because I got so busy with other things in life, I had to put it all in the back burner, but I'm going on years now. This beautiful little book is sitting in my shelf, and I showed it to a friend last year, and he's like, get this book out. He goes, get out there and start reading it to these children. I mean, it needs to be out there. And so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I don't want to, I need to get this out there, but I need to I need direction.
Yeah, you need some help. Well, exactly. I would love to help you do that. That just sounds like a topic that would be near and dear to my heart, and kind of a little similar almost to the permaculture, client that I helped. I think you'd have a lot of the same audience that would be interested.
Well, maybe we can sit down and chat about it. And,
well, again,
that would be great.
That's like a lovely thing that we can talk about during co-thrive time. It's very unstructured. Like, we can talk about any projects, just do brainstorming. I am a consultant, and that's what I kind of do for a living, but often I'm really drawn to work with people who don't necessarily have all the answers. They're not set up and know what they want. So this is the way that I can do that without it being terribly expensive. I should say, too, it's $30 a month. I do give everybody a free month free just to even see if it's something that they would like, because it's so unstructured that how do you know until you until you try it. So to get that, all you have to do is go to cothrive.org/free, and that'll kind of show you how to get set up and check it out. I mean, I'm happy to do a complimentary meeting, but it's like, you can have up to 24 hours of complimentary meetings in a whole month. You can just drop in.
Beautiful.
You don't have to worry about, you don't have to worry about setting it up. You just check the schedule, see when I'm in, and drop in.
Okay, that sounds beautiful. We'll do that. And then so I'd like to go into the next phase, if it's okay, with Stephen, and just some input or feedback. The book that I'm thinking of, that I've been thinking of, is around trees. And I wanted, I want to write. I love poetry and stories, and I've got stories about trees, and I've got other people's. When I started telling people this book I'm going to write, everybody's telling me their tree stories, and so I've got all these beautiful stories, and I want to do illustrate, and I've got this beautiful idea for this book. But here's the thing: I want to write this book on a tree-free book, and I want it to be original. I want it to be as originally created as possible. Is that possible? I mean, how do you see what I'm saying? See where I'm going with this?
You want to save trees. You don't want to take down any trees to do it.
Right. Well, right. I want it printed on tree-free books, almost like a piece of art.
Like bamboo.
Yes, bamboo. But like a piece of art. But I'm like, I'm not going to sit down and handwrite, 100 books.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
How large a book? That's a good question. How large a book would it be? Do you know how many pages?
Well, that's just it. I don't know exactly. I'm still kind of filtering the idea and even the possibilities of it. Again, it's one of those things I came out with a couple of years ago, and then it's just been kind of sitting in the back burner. Kind of, as a matter of fact, I've got it right here, and it's always right here close to me. And I actually went to Barnes & Noble when I bought this tree-free book, and I started putting all of my stories in this book because I was going to write this book. And I wanted to do it in kind of a calligraphic pen and ink, like a piece of art. And then I'm thinking that I would really love this book to be shared, and how do I make multiple copies of something like this?
Well, I guess the ebook,
right.
I mean, if you just don't print it, period, it's not exactly what you're asking for, but it would.
I guess I'm looking because I have this romance with paper and pen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But I want it to be tree-free. I want it to be tree-friendly. So I'm creating.
If I heard,
Mm-hmm.
So if I heard you right, so you bought a journal that was on tree-free paper?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know what material that is? Does it say?
Yes, it does. It gives. It is made from. It's eco-friendly, tree-free, handmade, ancient craft, promotes fair trade, and a woman cooperative. So these are all things that are aligned to my principles. And it's made from the Lopta. It's made from the Lopta plant, from the heart of the Himalayas, and it has got a whole story of where it's made, how it's made, and so this is important to me. This aligns with my principle.
And it is, and it's a handmade paper?
Yes, it's all handmade. It's a handmade book.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's yeah. I mean, that would be like, so I'm not an expert on going like non-traditional.
Right.
But that's like a really specialized
right.
process, which I think though, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's figured out a way to incorporate that kind of thing into into a publishing process, right? It's good, but it's not going to be through CreateSpace, I'm pretty sure.
No, right, and that's why I guess I'm just bringing, because and that's why I wanted to connect with this, because everything's been on the back burner for me. These two books, this book idea, this book, and right now my poor little tree-free book. Every time I write a poem or a story, I slip it inside the pages of my, my unfriendly tree paper.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, and right now it's busting at the seams, and so I figure, well, it's time. And when this opportunity came up,
I'll tell you what, I don't have the answer, but I feel like probably somebody in my network would, just because a lot of the things you just said are in alignment with me and my network too. I mean, I'm a master recycler, composter. The gentleman who wrote Permaculture Solutions to Climate Change, while it's not a tree-free book, he did do a lot of research on, which printers were using recycled paper. Still not all the way there, but that's exactly something I would love to investigate, via Co-Thrive Time, to get deep into the weeds. If you don't mind, we did get Joe finally to. Oh.
Yes.
Oh shoot! He was on the phone, and now I think
I missed
it. Let me see if I can get him on. I just want to make sure we take a few. But did you have any other questions besides the paper?
No, that's wonderful. That's perfect. I just wanted to make that connection, and I'm re-inspired, and
good.
Yay.
Well, that's kind of the idea, is really just to get people. I think we've been so lucky that we attract, I think, some creative and just beautiful souls that really have great ideas of their own, and then when we all start looking at how to cook up ideas together, there's a lot of cross-pollination that comes out, which I really love. I think that's pretty neat, or synchronicities, as you said.
Certainly is. So, and thank you both for your gift.
Thank you.
And I'd be open to brainstorming with you on trying to get that first book out in another way. I got some ideas, but we probably don't have the time to do it right here. But let's keep in touch on that.
I mentioned to Stephen. Thank you, Cynthia. I mentioned to Stephen just moments before we turned on the mics for today's call that hey, what about making a time or maybe a couple hours a month that are dedicated to, these specific types of questions, just because I think we do have a fair number of writers, we have a fair number of artists, But I think, building in, creating a space and intentionality to really support this work over the course of, not just today with the webinar, but give it some life beyond today. Even if it's just, hey, can somebody, let me read this sentence and see if this makes sense, or, can you think of a different way to see it? Say it. I think that there is a way to hold space for this online. Joe, I'm trying to get you on, and I saw that you called in, and now it looks like you're back to mic. I can't unmute you, so we're having some technical difficulties. My apologies. If you'd like to try calling back in again, I just couldn't get over to you in time. I'm sorry. And unfortunately, I can't call you because I can't do that while I'm hosting a call. I know we still have Lisa here. Does Lisa have any questions? Julie is also here. However, she's got her own issues with login, so I tried to email her to find out if she had any questions. Okay, well, I'm awfully sorry, Cynthia. I cut you off, and now we don't have the next caller queued up. So, Joe, we'll give you just another. Okay, I think we've got you back. You need to put in your audio PIN. So you should have gotten a message that gives you a 4-digit or a code that shows you what you need to enter, and then you'll be able to talk. Yeah, when technology works, it's a beautiful thing, but when we get into these issues, it can be a little frustrating. So yeah, I see he's calling me on my regular phone, and I can't take that. So if you can just call the number that's on there, we can give that a try. If we don't get it to work here in the near future, I think we're probably just going to wrap early. Stephen, can you think of anything else that you'd like to go back over on?
No, I mean, so actually, I don't know if Lee is still on, but I noticed on the Co-Thrive Facebook event for this, he had asked, are we going to cover ISBN numbers? I know we talked about it a little bit, and I would just say, again, just to reiterate it, create space. You can secure it through that if you use Create Space. Otherwise, there are independent channels for it if you need to, if you're going to use another publisher. But I would also suspect that other self-publishing outfits can secure them for you as well. So I don't think it's a big hurdle in general.
Good. Yeah, for me, it was kind of a decision point, but I felt like at least if I am making the decision, it's prompting me to say, hey, if you choose this, there's no cost, but here's the catch. They really, I thought, did a pretty nice job of walking you through the process. Here's what this choice means. Here are your other options. Here's where to find out more. And then I guess I'm thinking, too, if you did change the title somewhat, I don't know. I mean, it's not like I want to game the system, but if you had a different title, could you not then just apply for a different ISBN with a different situation? I mean, obviously you wouldn't upload an entire book and then do that. Does that make sense?
You could, and that would make sense, because if you had a different title, I would think it would justify having a different number.
Yeah, I'm not saying like publish it then retitle it, but if before it was published, I would think that there might be a way to kind of hit the redo button on that. And then the other thing, Stephen, is I don't think we touched on this. There are different editions. So if lo and behold you do kick yourself and find a typo, or oh gee, I thought that this was in and it wasn't. I mean, you can do an update, correct?
You can. Yeah, you can. Yeah, there. So and Create Space, like if you go back in from the very beginning, and you say I want to publish, I want to do a new project, it remembers what you've done before, right? And you could say I want to do a second edition of my, whatever book it is, right? So, so yeah, you can do multiple editions, same title, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's, kind of talks you through how to make a cover PDF. The cover scenarios that they've got right here are fairly limited. You know, you can
Yeah. So this is, and I'm glad you brought this up because that's the other thing I was going to say about covers was that, you know, this is sort of they provide several different templates in CreateSpace. So if really like it's prohibitive for you to hire a designer, but you still want to have a nice cover, you can actually use one of these templates in CreateSpace if you go with them. And you can tinker with it. So you can tinker with typefaces and with images, and you can come up with something that looks pretty good. I actually tinkered with it before I ultimately just designed my cover completely from scratch. The caveat would be that you're limited to whatever images they provide.
Right.
So and actually you can also upload your own images, but if you don't secure the rights to a separate image and you're using their catalog, the risk is that somebody else uses the same thing and your book looks like theirs. So yeah, so I mean, I'm a very strong advocate for trying to make the book cover as unique as possible.
As unique as possible. Yeah, I would agree. And I know for Joe, he's looking at using you know, an old family photograph with some text overlaid. So I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sure wish that I could get him on. I know he was really excited and he was trying hard. I'm going to try one more time and just see if the third time's a charm. Joe, do you have audio? He's still muted. Okay. Well, if you'd like to type anything, I'll be happy to address it, but for whatever reason, we were just having a double the time getting him in. So I just wanted to show that tool I mentioned before, canva.com. Again, that's kind of like Canvas, but without an S. So canva.com, it's free as of right now for the basic account. And then if there's an image that you want to purchase, they've got a relationship with Getty Images, and it's only $1, so it's not terribly expensive. But this would give you some degree of, you know, flexibility to, you know, like I said, design, but with a template. And I think it would go somewhat beyond. Oh, here's one, Forager. That's right up my alley. I've got to choose Forager, you know, just because I like the name. So this one does actually have a cost, and it will tell you what the cost is as you go. But this brings in, you know, image and text and everything. You can also build it out just by selecting a text block, you know, just adding text randomly or adding text in little bits. You can resize things, you know, make it smaller, larger, change the font, you know. So there are really a lot of different options. They're pretty cool. Even, you know, changing colors, you know, really everything you can imagine. And then once you're ready to download, you just simply hit download, and you can download that as a PDF. So if you chose a custom size and made it, you know, the appropriate size for CreateSpace, you could just save this as a PDF and then upload that all in one piece. So just another little tip or tool that we could hold out there for you to get it done and make it look pretty cool. You could also upload your own image here. You could upload, here's Stephen, here's me. I've got all kinds of pictures. So if you've got a picture, this is a picture that I uploaded of my own, you know, butterfly, and kind of made it into social media graphics. You know, so beyond the book cover, there are also all kinds of things that you could do. I actually thought Stephen's book would be great with little outtakes, little, you know, bits of wisdom that he put out there, because there were just so many little nuggets that I thought were great. So I had kind of the idea that he might do something like, is it something that you have? I think you've done a little bit of that, haven't you, Stephen?
Yeah, actually, so this is another kind of nice collaborative thing about my book is that I'm going to be working with Kathleen.
Great.
So because she has so many images that we're gonna try to link up images with a lot of the maxims or the sayings in my book.
Yeah.
So it's just to make it really continue the relationship that I have with her to co-create the work, and also to make it unique, right? So, so that's how we're looking at it.
So a couple things I just absolutely love about what you just said is that, you know, you're continuing a relationship. Here's somebody else that's now excited about your book that wouldn't have known that you had a book before, and now because their name is tied to the project, here's one more person who wants to help and be a part of it. So I say co-creation is almost a strategy that can be layered on with whatever other strategy you choose. But I just think that's lovely that the two of you are working together. So let's pretend like this is one of Kathleen's images. Again, her website is brigadina.com, brigidina.com. That's her middle name. She goes by that for her art self. And this will be made into a video, so you can always go back and watch any of this if you don't want to take copious notes. But let's just say Stephen could put like a little quote from one of his chapters and then have his name in the website here. This is really easy to just simply pin it. If you're on Pinterest, you can pin it right from there, which makes it very shareable already. Or you can also share in many different ways right from canva.com, or you can just simply download it and then share it wherever the heck you want. So it really is like a social media marketer's friend. And I think if you kind of parse out some of your content, some of your key points, or some of your quotable bits of your book, that can be a nice way to get wider coverage over social media. And certainly if you embed your website name on there, that will make it easy for people to kind of figure out who originated this image. In case it goes viral, gosh, wouldn't that be a great problem to have if it goes viral and other people are sharing it, but you don't have your name of the book or the website embedded here, there's the danger that it could become disassociated from you. The quote would still be out there in the world, but it wouldn't be as easy for people to figure out where it came from or how to get the book. So there's a lot you can do, with mixing these different ideas that we've talked about. Yeah. Cool stuff. Well, I can't wait to see what comes out of this group. And Laura has been awfully quiet. I don't think I've mentioned she came in a little bit after we started, Laura Hernandez-Myers. And I think you've written a couple different books, Laura, correct? I'd love to hear more about that. And I don't think we've had the pleasure of meeting yet, but she's another Unity person. I think she is connected to a lot of Unity in the Dunes folks here in Valparaiso where I live. So would love to know more about her and her books. I think Susan Kastner, another Co-Thrive member, told me that she had books that she was needing to promote. Yes. So if you've got anything you want to ask Laura, this would be a great time. Otherwise, the offer is good for you as well to join, Co-Thrive for the free membership and see if there are ideas you can take away if it's something that would be of long-term value for you.
Yeah, I'll, so I'll give my little plug of Co-Thrive. Since we're on the topic, I just...
You know what, Stephen, Joe, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Oh, there he goes. Okay.
I don't. Okay. It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. All right. As much as I love a plug from somebody that's just about to give my, online community plug, I am even happier to hear from Joe because he's been trying.
Yeah. Welcome, Joe.
Well, very good talk this morning and a lot of good points.
Yeah. Thanks. Anything we can answer for you or?
No, I like.
Uh-oh, you're cutting out. Oh dear. Hello.
Well, we got him for a moment.
Yeah.
Am I gone again?
You're very faint. Oh. Can you get the mic a little closer, possibly?
I'm right on top of it. Let me see if I can.
It's better. It's better again now. Yeah, better now.
Better now.
Mhm.
Yeah, Mom probably pulled the wire out on me. So
well, yeah. Quiet voice is typically not something you get a lot. You've got a big, booming voice. But so how's work been going for you since I introduced you to Create Space a few weeks ago? Any challenges, questions?
I can't find my cover that you created so nicely, and the main thing is I'm not a. My system is pretty irregular on dedicating it to the book. But I'm going to have it finished before you get down here.
For Thanksgiving? Wow.
Because no more beatings. No more beatings.
All right. Well, just tell me about the psychological benefit of seeing it formatted, do you think that that helped you to really see the end product and to kind of, you know, feel it being done versus it's kind of a hobby that seemed a little nebulous and, hey, I'll get it out there sooner or later?
Yeah. I will tell you that I think I heard you, and then I lost your volume, and somehow or other I had myself on mute. I don't know how that happened, but I did call the old owners of Legner Quang Monument Company.
Oh, cool.
They are no longer alive, but the
okay.
owner is 83 years old, and he bought it from Catherine Legner Quang.
Okay.
And I told him what my goal was, and he was going to give me a bid or an estimate on what it would cost. I sent him the drawing and all, so
okay,
that
so
would. I haven't heard from him, so he might have had a heart attack when he saw my drawing.
Oh my! Well, just since this idea was disconnected by quite a bit of time, let me just recap what this is alluding to. My dad's writing a book about his grandfather, correct? My
great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather. Okay, so it'd be my great-great-grandfather, who was a Civil War veteran, and they unfortunately used limestone for the headstones back then, and so it's very worn. You can barely read the name, and it's his idea to use the proceeds from the book to purchase a stone. And I thought that was a really cool idea because I have a feeling
something that could be taken for granted.
Good one. The pun meister. Okay, so you're going to be putting your puns to work for your fundraising, I can see. But then it really gives you the idea of starting with success and working backwards. So when you go to pricing, you go to who would be interested in this. You could certainly try to time it along with a family reunion, for instance, or our last name isn't all that common. Legner is my maiden name. There are groups on Facebook that are, that are gathered around that. They would probably be interested. You could kind of say, here's what I'm trying to do. And I think before they even read word one of your book, they're in alignment with your mission and would probably commit to pre-purchasing, a book or helping you spread the word or whatever. I, don't know that for a fact, but I would just think that there would be a good way of telling that story so that they would absolutely feel proud of being a part of that. They almost become part of the story, really. And just to kind of take a page out of the playbook that the permaculture book guy used, if people bought a book during his crowdfunding campaign, then he actually had a page in the book where he listed all of the contributors, and said all of these people helped make it possible. So then they literally become part of your story, and it's just kind of a neat way to tie everyone together, and I think that would be super cool. Anything else, though, for Stephen, because you can talk to me whenever.
Yeah.
But
well, ironically, I felt like having the two of you today was like having you here at the desk a couple of weeks ago, and going through these kind of things, and giving me that pep talk is, well, what is your goal? And I told you at that time what the goal was, and the book was a lot longer, so I've condensed it down to a meatier part that would have some greater interest on a wider basis. So
well,
that was good.
That sounds like all good focus group kind of stuff, just thinking who is the audience, what part is, maybe you could even have an extended version for family, that is more genealogy, and have another version that's kind of a slim, mainstream kind of thing.
You might make a note on this, is that did you ever read the book, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and the other two in the series?
I feel bad to say it, but I saw the movie.
You saw the movie?
I'm one of those people that didn't read the book. I saw the movie.
Would you believe that Aunt Frida has a book down, just to deviate a little bit, but to tell you how those work? Aunt Frida has a fourth copy, a new book. It was a manuscript that he never got published before he died. So this fella from the family got it and finished the book, and I'm sure it will sell even more than the first three.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard him on a podcast interview on NPR, I think, and that was pretty interesting for him to say, picking up the legacy and stepping into that role, kind of a lot of pressure. Yeah, well, cool. One thing we didn't talk about, Stephen, is kind of the pricing, and I'd say that's part of beginning with the end in mind. So, Joe just brought up, hey, cutting down pages to get it more mainstream.
Right.
And of course, the more pages, then the higher the cost as well, right?
Yeah. So okay. So that's a really good. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because we completely glossed over that. So pricing, if in CreateSpace, basically once you have got once you've got your page numbers and how big it's going to be, it will walk you through a model for different pricing options. So it will tell you how much it costs to produce it, and then it will, and then you can play with pricing. You could plug in different prices that allow you to see like what your royalty would be versus theirs, right? So Amazon's going to take, obviously they've got their cost, and they build in their profit into that, and then you can play with different numbers based on what kind of royalty you want per book. And because they also help, they do have other channels through which they can offer the book. So as part of your account with CreateSpace and as part of your setup, you can indicate whether you want them to make the book available to brick and mortar bookstores. And there's no extra cost to you, or there's no cost to you in doing that. You can just say, yes, I'd like it to be carried, as regular solid inventory in other bookstores. So other bookstores can actually order it. But the royalty tends to differ based on whether it's being sold online versus through brick and mortar. So you can play with the pricing to kind of optimize what royalty you want. And then it's all very easy. It's like those old software wizards where you would sort of plug in your specifications and your information, and it would just walk you through the process.
And then if it were me, what I would probably do is go back to good old Google Drive and create an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet, and just, if you're looking at crowdfunding, say, okay, here's the amount that the headstone is going to cost me. And then, could I sell a premium bound version that's like maybe the family or the heritage version for, a premium? Maybe people would pay $50 or something for a really lovely looking coffee table kind of book, and then, just have the kind of streamlined version that would be more commercially viable. And then you can just do the ebook version that, frankly, you can just email that to people. You don't even absolutely have to do it as a Kindle. Would that be correct, Stephen? Do you own the PDF of your book?
Yeah. You just couldn't, right, you own the PDF, so you could do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
Right.
But so I think if you looked at how many sales at each of those levels would I need to get to the big goal, that's where something like, whether you do crowdfunding or not, it just gives you an idea of how you might get there. And if you can just print on demand anyway, is that true, Stephen, for all of the CreateSpace books? Are they pretty much printing on demand? There's no minimum volume.
So they don't keep, there's no inventory. So basically the technology is such that somebody orders it and they print it on demand. That's the nice thing about this model, is that there's no cost for them to say, oh, we got to print like 1,000 copies of this and keep it in our warehouse, because that's not the way it works. It's all print on demand.
And then you see those in the discount stores real quick.
You never know. You never know.
You do, right. That's the thing about tangible inventory, is then once it gets out of date, it goes in the clearance bin. But the book that I did in 2008, if somebody orders it, if you went online today to Amazon and you ordered my first book, essentially they're printing it just right then and there. So it's not like there's been a copy sitting in their warehouse for 8 years or whatever it is.
Right. They've got to make it and then they'll send it. So
Pretty cool. Nancy has a comment for you, Kath.
Okay.
A question. Before, when you mentioned that you put a sample of the book out, so that you kind of pique person's interest or perk it up. And I was wondering, with Dad's book, would he do like the prologue of the first Joseph H. Legner, since he's the fifth one, and kind of give a background of Germany and why he came to America, and then go to a little excerpt of his diary, or how would you do that?
Yeah, I've had multiple clients that wrote books and did a strategy. One was a health coach who wrote the book Gut Guide, so it was a nonfiction, kind of how to take care of your own health book, and she did a specific download on a topic that she thought would be of highest interest. The permaculture guy, he actually made his entire book available for free just because his win was everybody has a permaculture backyard and more knowledge. So it kind of depends, what does success look like, what's going to get you to your goal. So I think I would try to pick the piece that has the best standalone oomph, and although you wouldn't have call to action exactly, what would kind of leave you wanting more, and I don't know that would always be chapter 1, or it could be some bonus material. Do you have any feelings on that, Stephen? Did you implement that strategy?
Yeah, I'm a little bit behind on that particular strategy. I mean, it's still, what I've done is it's been a little bit more ad hoc in the sense that, like people that I know who actually want to support some of the ancillary work that I'm doing, like my workshops, I'll send them, I'll send a free chapter of the book to people who are supporting me in different ways. I have yet to actually build it into the main promotional model, but that's my own, just prioritizing it. So
yeah, I will say on the books that I've co-authored with Powerful You Publishing, I mean, they're very good at getting all the books. I think nearly every book that they've published has gotten to Amazon #1 bestseller. So their model of success is always beginning with that in mind. So what they do is actually do a whole telesummit. They ask each author to submit a separate piece that is bonus material that all is downloadable, for free for people who attend the telesummit. And the idea with that is just to kind of get them interested, to build value into it. If you're one author, obviously there's no need to have a telesummit. I'm not suggesting, there's just one size fits all, but I think whatever you can uniquely do to get people into your story. And if you do decide to go the crowdfunding route, like maybe Kickstarter, Indiegogo, I'd have to refamiliarize myself with the rules and regs around each one. Some will only allow you to take the money if you hit your goal in its entirety. Some will allow you to scale it. So if you've got a monument that you need to pay for, and at minimum you need to raise X amount, you might do better with an all or nothing model. Kind of tying a lot of parts here together. But the video, I think, is where you get a chance to tell your story, and that would be great to touch on some of the things that Mom just mentioned about the history, the why. I can see that coming forth really, really well. That is the story, that's the why, and I think that would tug at a lot of people's hearts to make them want to be a part of it. What they would then get, in response, if they contributed, would probably be worthy of its own, strategy session. So we're kind of going a little bit out of the self-publishing and more into crowdfunding and promotion strategy. But I will be happy to help you more on that.
We look forward to it.
Yeah, and I want to thank both Nancy and Joe. They are both writers in their own right. They're my parents, and they were very early supporters of Co-Thrive, so it's just kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, nice to meet you online. So hopefully in person someday.
Ditto.
Well, thanks to everybody who's still on. I know Lisa's still here, Laura's still here, Cynthia. We've all enjoyed having you, and I believe Julie is here as well, though she didn't have a computer hookup. And everybody who might be hearing this later, I know there were quite a few people who said they really wanted to be here but had, the pesky work get in the way. So the beauty of video, they too can glean this information, hopefully put it to work. I'd love to hear what you do with it. You can email me at Kathy@cothrive.org, and just tell me what you did with this information. It'd be a great part of our story as to what we're creating out in the community, out in just creative land. And it's just really nice to learn where your words fall and who your words touched that helped them create something of value. So I want to thank Stephen again for being with us. He's been really generous with his time and his knowledge, and also has been a wonderful supporter of CoThrive since the very inception. So that's it for today. Again, this is Kathy Sipple, your host, and if you'd like to get more information like this, come and visit us at cothrive.org. You can learn how to subscribe or even join the community if you'd like to join us for weekly meetups that we do online to go further into each of our individual projects. So thanks very much.